Welcome back to A Touch of Blue Studio and Drawing with Grandma. In our previous lessons, we studied a few animals. We studied the cheetah and a buck and a bunny rabbit, and we used circles and ovals in order to create their basic head shapes and body shapes. We practiced pencil techniques to create the value range and create the textures that you might see on various animals. We even made some effort with applying some watercolor washes over some of our drawings. Keeping a sketchbook is a necessary step for any developing artist, and being careful to record your thoughts, your ideas, and your progress is a crucial part of your development. The ability to draw quickly and confidently and accurately will prove to be a sign of your advancing skills. Balancing both creativity and your technical skills will always be a challenge, but a very important goal. Be sure to begin your efforts in sketchbook studies that reflect foundational art principles. Just like a musician who is pushing themselves to excellence needs practice and underlying music theory, so it is with the art student who is aiming to produce work that is excellent, beautiful, and meaningful. You will see progress as you take intentional steps to develop your understanding and skill. Our next lesson will continue our studies of animals and basic shapes that we find in nature and in organic shapes, such as circles, ovals, and rectangles and squares. And this eagle begins with an oval-shaped head. We're going to look at his profile. And as we begin the oval, we also want to extend the unique shape of his beak, which is very dominant. And as you study your photograph of an eagle, you'll want to compare the size of the head to the beak because we don't want to make it too small or too large. The placement of the eye, as I've mentioned in other lessons, is very important in order to correctly draw this expression of the eagle, which, as you can see, his brow is very distinct and almost making him look angry, but elegant and beautiful at the same time. Look how far his beak goes into his head, and right under his eye you see that base of the beak. So the placement of those features are going to be very important in order to accurately present this bird. I'm again using drawing techniques, shading, line variations that help to give the different textures and effects of this particular animal. You remember that eagles have that strong white brow on top of his head, but also that collar that is very white. So right under that, we're going to create that feathery look of the collar and the top of his head, which is usually pretty white and pure. And make sure that we get enough shadow in order to create that strong distinction from light to dark. I'm going to work on the background a little bit on this eagle, and that will help to make the white areas of his collar and his head and the light hitting his beak a little bit more distinct. So you can begin to work on backgrounds behind your animals now. Put them in a context and an atmosphere that they would live in, or just dark and light contrasts that would, make him stand out. A little bit more texture, line variation, and just some points of interest. Our next study is a beautiful wolf, and this time we're going to start with a circle that's a little bit triangular, and the ears on this one is very important for distinguishing that particular shape of animal. You can see that I'm also dealing with the symmetry because he's looking not exactly at us, but he is looking toward us. So you want that line down the center of his head and toward his nose. And then out of that line, you'll want to find where the top of the eyes would be placed. And so I've kind of made a cross of where that line would be in order to place his eyes. So that's an important tip for helping you to place the features of humans and animals by finding that cross where the bridge of the nose would begin, determined by the angle and position of the head. So now I'm going to begin placing a little bit more detail on the features, the nose, and the eye, and make some corrections before I make my final lines. I don't know what your favorite animal is, but a wolf is one of mine. I think my favorite animal is a tiger and a horse, but this wolf is just so beautiful and interesting. So I continued drawing the patterns on his fur and looking for details that will be unique to the wolf. Really the expression of his eyes, the size of those ears, the bushy fur around his head, of course his snout and the size of his black nose are all going to contribute to getting the likeness of this wolf. So I've added some detail and I've tried to take it as far as I can for a sketch. And now I'm just working on making sure I have corrections on the placement of the eyes, the emphasis on those pupils, the fur where there's a lot of dark patches, and then it carries down to that beautiful snout of his, and then of course the ears need a little bit of touch-ups and reshaping. Of course you want to apply the value range and work on those pencil techniques. Thank you so much for joining me today with this lesson, Drawing with Grandma.